Good morning. I'm so happy to see you all on the call today. Um, and actually not really see your faces since we're virtual, but good to have you here. If you have not met me, I am Jalen Fuller, the HR trainer for the Division of Human Resources. And today I will be joined by Teresa Limpeler, our Director of HR Service Teams, as well as Belinda Ogoric, our AVP of HR. So if you have any really tough questions, please ask them. And if I can't answer them, they will jump in and save the day. We also have some partners from payroll who will be around to answer any payroll related questions. So please let us know if anything that's on your mind. If Teams did not give you that pretty annoying reminder already, we are going to record this one. So slides and the recording will be available in our HR contact newsletter on Monday. So please be on the lookout for that. Today, we're going to only do a presentation since nothing has changed drastically since last year. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump in. So our agenda for today, and actually one last thing, guys, you should not be able to unmute yourselves, but you should be able to ask questions in the chat. Teresa will be monitoring the chat for any questions and letting me know when we have some questions for the good of the group. So please include your questions in that chat box. So for today, we're going to first start with our summer comp basics. We know that not everyone here on this call today has done summer comp before. You may be new to the university, so we're going to break it down from the beginning so that everyone is aware of what we're doing. Next, we'll go into some reminders about session codes. So if you attended last year, if you submitted summer comp last year, you know that we have no session codes, so that's nice. Then we'll be getting into the processes. So first for our FTE faculty members, and then for our TFACs, our adjuncts. And then finally, we'll be giving you some resources so that you can submit your summer comp assignments. So first and foremost, summer comp basics. What is summer comp? Summer compensation is a mechanism to compensate 9, 10.5, and 11-month FTE faculty for work performed over the summer months during their out-of-basis time. Again, out of basis. So this is not going to be for our 12-month faculty. They are not eligible for summer comp. The typical 9-month pay basis is going to run from 816 to 515 of whatever year. And so that's really what we're looking for. For those folks who are on 10.5 and 11-month pay bases, their pay basis is going to depend on their individual contracts and should be clearly noted in their offer letters. So when you are submitting summer comp, Central HR will be looking to see if that person is within their pay base. They're going to double check that. So make sure that it's clearly notated in their offer letter for their summer comp assignments. Summer comp is not dual employment or an FOV. Those are only options for folks who are in not dual employment. If you are looking for a 12-month faculty member to handle some additional courses, some additional assignments, instruction, whatever the case may be, an internal dual assignment may be your best bet there. Summer classes for faculty on a 12-month pay basis can also be hired as an FOV if applicable. So there are going to be two types of summer compensation. So the first is going to be summer instruction. So that faculty member is teaching courses over the summer. The other type is going to be ecom or research. So ecom is going to stand for extra compensation and is going to be associated with an administrative appointment. So for example, if someone is a department chair in their pay basis and then they need to do some duties during the summer, that'd be a great instance for ecom. The research could be something that's being performed for a grant or a sponsored award, but it's going to be during that out of basis pay time. I've already spoken a little bit about FTE faculty members being eligible for summer comp, but I want to make it clear right now who is eligible for summer comp and who is not. So our folks who are eligible, those are going to be our FTE faculty members. Only those FTE faculty members on a 9, 10.5, or 11-month pay basis though. Again, 12-month faculty members are not going to be eligible for summer comp. Also eligible are going to be the TFACs, those temporary faculty members, those adjuncts who have taught in the immediately preceding spring semester. Who is not eligible? So all of our staff, our FTEs, our RTP, our time limit, our temps are going to be ineligible for summer comp. Additionally, RGP and time limited faculty members are not eligible for summer comp either. Student employees, of course, are not going to be eligible for summer comp. Again, just to emphasize here once more, FTE faculty on a 12-month pay basis are not eligible for summer comp. And those TFACs who did not teach in the immediately preceding spring semester are not going to be eligible. So if you have any questions, any doubts, refer back to this slide to see who is eligible and who is ineligible for summer comp. Okay, so some basic dates. Summer comp begins on 5/16 of 2025 this year, and it's going to end on 8/15 of 2025. Summer instruction, which is teaching, can begin before that 5/16 date in alignment with any summer session begin dates. So we all know that some classes actually may begin on May 12th. There may be a May semester that begins on May 6th. So your faculty will be able to teach those classes as summer instruction. There are just a little couple things to consider when you think about those earlier dates that we will get into later. However, econ or research cannot begin before 5/16/2025. This is a hard stop, and there are no exceptions to this rule. Likewise, under no circumstances will summer compensation extend past 8/15/2025. This is when all of our 9-month pay-based faculty members are back in their pay bases. So any dates after that will have to be hired as regular employment. Okay, so some basics on pay info. Payment for summer comp is based off that faculty member's salary as of 5/15/2025. So whatever a faculty member's base salary is at that point is what is going to be used to calculate their summer comp rate. With that being said, that means that any general increase will not impact salaries for summer comp 2025. It will not apply until those folks are back into their pay basis, because it doesn't go into effect until either 6/16 or 7/1, depending on if that employee is paid on a lag or if they're paid current. Summer comp is going to default to the same pay schedule as the faculty's FTE position. So if they're current in their primary position, or if they're a lag in their primary position, it's going to be how that summer comp follows. Those pay schedules are going to be published on that payroll toolbox. So if you are not aware, that is where you can check that information out. And to be clear, there is no separate pay schedule for the summer. FTE faculty members cannot be paid for summer compensation until 5/31/2025 payroll, if they're paid current, and then 6/15 if they're paid on a lag. So with that being said, those folks who are teaching before 5/16, if they're teaching for a May semester or just that class that starts early, they cannot be paid until that 5/31 payroll if they're paid current, or the 6/15 pay period if they're paid on a lag. Of course, all TFACs are going to be paid on the lag, so that's not as applicable. Next is going to be job data. So I'm using the word job data here, but if you are a department HR contact, you're going to be familiar with this same view, but under current job. So just keep that in mind. So all summer hires have a job code of VSUM, which is crucial for our reporting. It's crucial for our queries. So don't let that shock you. That is just going to be what all of our summer comp assignments are assigned, even those TFAC positions. The pay group is going to show a designation for the summer assignment as well, and it will either be summer instruction or research, lag for our TFACs, or for non-current FTE faculty members, or summer instruction research current for those FTE faculty members who are paid current. Just to emphasize once more, all TFACs are going to be paid on a lag, so don't let that surprise you. And of course, that pay group is going to follow the primary position for those FTE faculty members. Contract pay. So when you get into job data, when you get into current job and you start poking around that compensation tab, it's going to look a little bit different. And that's because we actually use contract pay to pay out these summer comp assignments. So not the same as for other employment types. So with that being said, for compensation, you won't see a semi-monthly rate, but you'll actually see the full amount of the summer assignment. So the full amount that position is going to pay out. If you look on the screenshot on the right, you'll see up in that top yellow that compensation rate is that full $50,250 for that assignment. You'll see that the frequency is not going to be listed as semi-monthly. It's going to have a C for contract, meaning the full amount. You'll also see an option for contract change prorate option. And then below that in the pay components, you'll see that rate code is a little bit different. So we have a summer assignment rate code. It's going to either be summer research or summer instruction, depending on the type of assignment. And then, of course, that compensation rate is going to match the compensation rate in the compensation detail section because it's going to be that full value, not a assembly monthly rate. Okay, compensation limits. This is where it gets a little bit tricky. So in summer 2025, there are 66 work days for 9-month faculty. So total compensation for summer 2025 employment may not exceed 33.85% of the faculty members' preceding academic year salary. Why am I kind of explaining this a little bit weird? Well, the limit is going to always be 33 point something. The numbers behind that decimal place totally depend on the amount of work days that occur during the summer months, which can vary from year to year. This year is going to be 33.85%, just like it was last year. However, I want to be clear that this is for 9-month faculty. Our 10.5 and 11-month faculty members limits are going to be prorated for their longer pay basis. So for 10.5-month faculty, the limit is going to be 14.66%, which is up to 33 work days, depending on their specific dates. For 11-month faculty members, the limit is going to be 9.36%, so up to 22 work days, depending on their personal dates. And then, of course, 12-month faculty members are not going to be eligible for summer comp. Again, dual assignment, FOV, whatever's applicable. Exceptions to that 33.85% limit for summer instruction, keyword summer instruction, require prior approval by the office of the provost or that campus's chancellor. Exceptions are up to 40% of the faculty members' preceding academic year salary. Again, I want to emphasize that exceptions to this 33.85% limit is going to be for summer instruction only. If an exception is being requested for FTE faculty on the Columbia campus, the summer hire e-form will automatically workflow to the provost's office for approval. If this exception is being requested for summer instruction for FTE faculty on the comprehensive university campuses or the Palmetto College campuses, the initiator must attach approval documentation from their campus provost to the summer hire e-form. You're going to want to make sure that you include that on your e-form when you submit, because otherwise it would have to be sent back and you have to get that documentation attached. So avoid any delays. Go ahead and include that approval on the front end.
Hey, Jalen.
Yes.
We've got a couple comments in the chat. If you could just slow it down a little bit. It's been a while since folks have heard about summer comp, so if you could slow down just a touch.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry about that, guys.
Thank you.
And so like I mentioned, once more, there are no exceptions to this 33.85% limit for econ or research. This is going to be only for summer instruction. The only exceptions are going to be for summer instruction. Okay, moving on to offer letters. So these have been required for the last few years, and this year is no exception. We actually started requiring these offer letters as a direct result of wage complaints. People who were saying that they weren't getting paid what they were expected to be paid. They weren't doing the work that they were expecting to perform. So therefore, we need to have a documented contract that outlines the work to be performed and the earnings for said work. You can see on this page, I have a little sample on the right, but we have templates built for you that are available on our website. So all summer hires require an offer letter. There are going to be 3 templates available in the HR toolbox for you to utilize. One's going to be for FTE faculty members, and 2 of them are going to be for our temporary faculty members, our TFACs, our adjuncts. Each line item on the offer letter, i.e. each separate class or separate econ or research assignment, must be associated with a separate summer hire e-form in HCM or a separate line on the PBP2 form. So again, to reiterate, so in that little sample that we see on the right, for each of those lines that you include in that offer letter, there needs to be a separate summer hire e-form in HCM for FTE faculty or a separate line on the PBP2 form for our TFACs. And I know I haven't discussed what the PBP2s are just yet, but we're going to get to those in just a moment. The salary amount and the dates of the appointment on the summer hire e-form or that PBP2 form for TFAX must match what is listed in the attached offer letter. So if you guys are submitting an offer letter to us with specific dates, your summer hire e-form or your PBP2 form has to match exactly. Any discrepancies will result in delays because they will have to be corrected, either the form or the letter. So please keep that in mind. We're going to actually talk about in the next couple of slides about how important deadlines are to this whole summer comp process. Meeting these deadlines are essential for ensuring a good experience for our faculty members to ensure that everyone gets paid in a timely and predictable manner. So some action deadlines. So I mentioned before, but summer compensation follows the same HR deadlines as all other actions. I have the summer 2025 deadlines over here to the right. Late actions negatively impact our employees, and I'll kind of give more details on the next slide. Any summer comp action initiated on or after the requested effective date is considered late and requires late justification. Now, to be clear, missing one of our published deadlines, so the deadline to submit to HR by noon, missing one of those deadlines does not require a late justification memo. It's really based on the effective date of the action. So for instance, if your faculty member's summer instruction starts on June 1st and you submit the e-form on June 1st, you will need to provide a late justification. Okay, so the impact of these late actions. Late actions result in employees paying more in taxes. Taxes are calculated on the taxable earnings due on the current pay period and not based on the taxable wages for each individual check that was missed. So for example, if an employee is being paid $500 per pay period from 5/16/2025 to 7/15 for summer instruction, an on-time hire approved on 5/3/2025 would result in the employee being taxed based on that $500 minus any retirement. However, a late hire approved on 7/2 would result in that employee missing 3 paychecks, and the taxes would be calculated based on a $1,500 amount minus any retirement. Now, to be clear, we are not implying that the employee will have an increased total tax liability, just that more of that liability will hit in a single paycheck. As you know, some folks work on tight margins, and having more money deducted than expected could cause undue stress. So please keep that in mind. Having these on time, having these submitted before those deadlines is super important to that employee experience. Negative impacts of late actions also extend to the summer job change and status change e-forms. So submitting that job change or that status change e-form can also cause negative impacts. It usually results in an overpayment related to terminations and or late salary changes. And no one likes to have their wages changed to get back money that they owe. So as HR contacts, you're going to receive a newsletter each week with payroll effective deadlines. Please be sure that you are checking these each week to ensure that you get your paperwork in on time and avoid those negative impacts. If you know you're going to be late on a specific e-form and a specific assignment, be sure to give your service team a heads up so they can work to minimize the impact so they can prioritize getting that faculty member paid on time. Specifically, faculty have mentioned to the payroll department that a negative impact is their inability to budget their summer pay when paperwork is turned in late. Super, super important for those folks who are on a 9-month, a 10.5, or 11-month pay basis. They don't get paid year round like they usually do, so having a predictable on-time payment during those out-of-pay basis months is going to be super important to their experience. So I mentioned earlier, and some of you may remember from last year, but those session codes were removed. If you are unfamiliar with those were just a long list of codes that describe all of the different sessions from each campus. So when different sessions started and when they ended. However, what we found is that folks were getting these mixed up because often the sessions would start on the same day, but end on different dates. And of course, delays would ensue since the forms did not match what the offer letters had. So in order to combat these errors, we have just removed those session codes completely. So The goal really was to reduce the amount of recycled forms, the emails that were returned, and to also to standardize this process to align with our other hiring processes. So it's not so different from a regular hire that you would be submitting. It was pretty successful in 2024, so we are going to continue it for 2025. Of course, your feedback is always welcome. Please do note, however, and you'll see this in the bottom right screenshot, that the PBP2 forms still have an open text field titled session, which you can use to label the different courses, the different assignments in a way that aligns with the funding section. So we still have that there so that you can still match the funding section, which occurs later down in that form. Okay, so getting out of the weeds and getting into the actual process itself, and we're going to start for our FTE faculty members because it does differ from how we do summer comp for our TFACs. So eligible FTE faculty summer compensation assignments are submitted via the summer hire e-form in HCM. If you've been in EPAF homepage anytime recently, you haven't seen that, and that is because it's going to be unlocked on 4/14/2025. In addition to that summer hire e-form, there's going to also be the summer job change e-form, and that's going to be how you make changes to active summer compensation assignments. Notice that I did say active here, and that just means that the effective date has occurred. So even if you've submitted a form, gotten all the approvals, Central HR has signed off, and it is good to go, if that effective date has not occurred, that appointment is not going to be active. Therefore, you will not be able to make changes using that summer job change e-form. So please, please, please keep that in mind. Like I mentioned, these two forms are going to be unlocked on 4/14. So next Monday, you'll be able to go ahead and get those started. And those summer comp assignments, which need to end prior to the end date on file, are going to be initiated via the regular status change e-form. So in the same way that you would end a temporary assignment for any other type of employment, that's going to be how you, or any other employment type in general, that's going to be how you end a summer comp assignment. Okay, so the e-form itself. So all summer comp actions for FTE faculty are initiated and submitted directly in HCM via the e-form. It's super intuitive. It looks very similar to all of the other forms that you submit for your jobs. So I'm not going to go over the full process here, but kind of give you some highlights. So these summer hire e-forms are super smart, and they're going to actually track that 33.85% limit, that cap across multiple forms, and it's going to present that information to you for other appointments. So if you are submitting a form and someone else has submitted a summer assignment for that faculty member, it's going to pop up here in this summer compensation section. It's going to give you that status as well as the amount. And of course, the form is smart, so it's going to calculate what you're trying to pay with what anyone else is trying to pay that person to ensure that you're not going over any limits. For e-com and research, it's not going to be able to calculate if this is going to be full-time or not. You're going to have to put in the amount of hours that someone is working. But for your instruction, the e-forms are smart, so it's going to take in what you put for the amount of credit hours. So if a class that you're assigning someone for the summer is going to be 3 credit hours, they're going to automatically be assigned 10 hours per week, and so on and so forth, as assigned by the provost's office. So point of this all is super smart forms. You don't have to guess too much. It's going to tell you what other departments are hiring your folks for, so that you're not hitting any limits. So super important. If you do happen to go over that 33.85% limit, it will give you a warning. So if you need to attach that justification, or that approval from your provost or your chancellor, or if you need to rethink that payment and resubmit, you can do that as well. So anyone with the EPAF initiator role is able to initiate summer hire e-forms for any FTE faculty members across the university system. So with that being said, if you are hiring faculty from another area, be sure to partner with their home department, so their HR department, so that your money can be considered as part of that 33.85% limit. Super, super important. Our faculty members are team players, and they are often teaching courses from multiple areas. So to be clear, if you are hiring from another area, not your department, you should be working with the faculty's home department, their HR, for that faculty member in advance to be sure that the faculty member stays under any limits or receives appropriate justification if need be. Central HR doesn't have a mechanism to actually see when you guys have, agreed to hire somebody. There is no formal permission forms that have to be signed. If something comes to us and it meets all of our needs, our definitions, it's below the limits, we're going to approve. So definitely make sure you're working together to ensure that folks can be hired for what they need to be hired for, and they're not going over any caps. I cannot stress this enough. Okay, so those were our FTE processes. This is going to be for our TFACs. So TFACs who taught in spring 2025 are going to be eligible to be hired for summer comp via the PBP2 paper form, and I'll have an example of that on the next slide. TFACs who did not teach in spring 2025 are not eligible to be hired via the PBP2 form and must be submitted as normal via a temporary hire through People Admin. So if they did not work this spring, if they're not working right now, just go ahead and know that you're going to have to submit them through People Admin just like you would do for any other temporary position. TFACs are going to only be eligible for summer instruction though. They cannot be hired for econ or research. So also keep that in mind. Another thing I want to point out here, it's not actually on this slide, but I just want to point it out. TFACs do not have earning limitations like FTE faculty members because they don't have base salaries. They don't have base appointments with the university. So there's going to be no computations necessary. There are going to be no caps. You're just going to use whatever that going rate is for your area or your department as applicable to hire your TFACs. So on the right of this slide right here, you can see an example of that PBP2 form. So if you've looked at this recently, you can probably tell that something's changed, and that's going to be that separation action has been removed. That is new to this year. So with that being said, this form is only going to be used for hiring and changing a summer assignment. I want to reiterate that TFACs are subject to the auto termination process. So you're going to only actually need to use a separation action if an employee is being separated before their expected end date. And going forward, that is going to be no longer done through a PBP2 form. You're just going to log into HCM and submit the separation as you would for any other employment type. You're going to first need to select what type of action you're taking. So that little radio button in the top, you're going to have to either click hire or change because the form is actually going to populate based on what you select. So if you don't select anything, you won't have any of these options to put in stuff. So make sure that you're selecting your action before you start filling out that form. Also, super important is this accounting information section. It's super important that it's completed correctly and accurately the first time. You're going to also need to type that combination code into the comment section. So as this kind of form implies, this is a very manual process. So Central HR is going to be manually entering this form. The payroll department is going to be manually entering that accounting information form. So if anything is wrong, if anything is missing, that's going to result in those delays that we talked about before, resulting in a negative experience for your employees. So please double check your work. Be sure that you have that accounting information entered correctly the first time and that everything matches the offer letters that you're submitting to avoid those delays. And just to get into this example, so your standard stuff, your employee information, department information, and then the summer instruction information. And like we mentioned before, each of these lines needs to be separate for the summer assignments. So for each line you have on your offer letter, it needs to correspond to a different line on this PBP2 form. Sorry, lots of P's there. Okay, so for submission, these PBP2 forms for hires that are submitted without an offer letter will be returned for edits, which of course can delay that employee's compensation process. So when you submit your PBP2 form, make sure that you are submitting it alongside an offer letter. I mentioned before, but there are two different offer letter templates that are provided for temporary employees for summer hires. One is going to be a standard rehire offer, and then the second one is going to be a retiree rehire offer letter. Super common in both situations, so definitely check them both out to see what you need. All the data on those PBP2 forms and that offer letter must align. I cannot emphasize this enough. If there are any discrepancies, they will need to be fixed before that we can process the hire. So once you've completed your forms, once you have your signed offer letters, they match, all the details are good, you're going to scan them both and email them to the salary admin inbox. So saladmin@mailbox.sc.edu. Make sure you are submitting to this email address. Please do not email individuals in Central HR or payroll. They're going to simply ask you to send it to that email instead. This inbox is how we monitor, how we distribute these forms, so please use it. So some resources. So we have tons, and I mean tons of job aids, important information, offer letter templates, any type of updates, the PBP2 form itself, and various other resources that are going to be housed in the HR toolbox, which will be updated on Monday as well. So this recording, the slides for this session, all the job aids and stuff will be updated on Monday. So you can check that out then to get those resources. We also have a process procedure form, which has all of the information that I've covered in this session today, but in a condensed one-page format. So that'll be nice to look for as well. And just to reiterate, all of this stuff is going to be sent out on Monday in our HR Contact newsletter. So if you're not already on that newsletter, please reach out to me and I can get you added there. So queries. There are actually going to be 3 queries in HCM to help you monitor your summer comp. There can be lots of assignments, so these queries are super useful in keeping your head on straight. So the first one is going to be the pending summer forms query. So this is going to provide key details on the summer hire and the summer job change e-forms initiated for employees in the VSUM summer job code that are pending in the workflow. So I mentioned before that all summer assignments have that VSUM job code, and this is why. So status change e-forms initiated on summer employee records will not appear on this query. So just keep that in mind as well. You will have to monitor those forms through the view ePath form as normal. College division and campus contacts have access to run this, which includes the status of GT Workflow College Department. Additionally, we have the approved summer forms query, which of course provides key job data and funding info for your active summer hires. So those forms that have already reached that effective date that are active in our system. And then finally, we have the total comp query, which provides the total current year summer comp on file for your employees, as well as their 33 whatever % limit that is for that year, and their FTE base salary as well, so you can make that comparison. Status change e-forms associated with summer hires will be on the regular e-form tracking queries since it is not specific to summer. So if you're looking for those separations, you're going to have to run a regular query to get those. Of course, if you have any questions, if you have questions about specific folks who have assignments, specific TFACs, whoever the case may be, definitely reach out to your service team or myself. We are here to help you. And finally, I just wanted to talk a little bit about account funding changes. So funding changes for both FTE and TFAC summer compensation follow the same rules as all other employee types. So current and future dated changes are going to be initiated on the account funding change e-form in HCM, and then retro changes will need to be handled through the retro journal entry process. So same as any other employment type, you're going to either have to do the account funding change form or work with the controller's office through that retro journal entry process to get that updated. So with that being said, I hope that I have refreshed you. Do I have any questions in the chat?
Hey, Jalen. We've been running through some questions as we're moving along. I think it would be good to read some of these out just to ensure that folks understand. Maybe they weren't reading the chat because they were paying attention to you. So if we could just read these aloud real quickly, there's just a handful. I think that would be beneficial.
Yes, please go ahead.
All right. Okay, so there's a question about the 33.85% limit when someone has instruction and e-com, and wondering specifically if someone could have an e-com for the 33.85 and then get approval to go up to the 40% for instruction. And of course, the answer is no to that, because the e-com is the reason that they would be exceeding that limitation. We had a question about dates of multiple assignments overlapping. And so, of course, as long as they're not exceeding the 33.85%, we don't have any concerns with the assignments overlapping. They might have an e-com and are teaching a course at the same time. That is no concern at all. They might be teaching two courses at the same time. No problem whatsoever. Confirmation about course credit hours calculating into hours per week. And so that is the same equation that we use for our ACA calculation form for our temp hires that you all know and love. So that is just the flat 3 credit hours will equal 10 hours per week. It is the same equation, and the form will calculate that for you, as Jalen mentioned earlier. We had a question about TFACs being hired as research advisors, and those would be through people admin, since they are not teaching a class and we could not do summer comp for them through the PVP2S form. Let's see. There was concern about minimum enrollment. So if a course doesn't meet minimum enrollment, when can they submit the separation to try and avoid an overpayment? So as y'all know, we do communicate in the HR Contact newsletter each week the upcoming payroll lockdown dates, not the deadline submission dates, but when payroll actually goes on lockdown. And for these situations where we're trying to avoid an overpayment, that's the date we want you to hone in on. We need you to ensure that it is with us before that date, and communicate to your service team, and we can work with payroll and get that done to avoid overpayment. If we don't get it before that lockdown date, there is usually not much wiggle room to be able to avoid that overpayment for someone who is paid current. If they're on a lag, we might have a little bit more flexibility there, but just communicate with your service team so we can work as quickly as possible to ensure that there is not an overpayment. Okay. Can they exceed the daily rate if they don't exceed 33.85%? We had that question a couple times. And yes, what we're looking at is the 33.85% limitation. So for e-com, if they are exceeding the daily rate, that's okay, so long as that maximum 33.85 is not exceeded. We would be okay with that. And then we've been asked, when will the recording be available? So Jalen, you want to reiterate when we're going to send out all these materials?
Yep, all new materials are going to come in your HR Contact newsletter on Monday, so stay tuned. It'll be bright and early in the morning for you.
And those are all the questions we've had.
Amazing. It looks like it was pretty busy on your end. I just want to give an opportunity for our folks from payroll. Is there anything that you guys wanted to mention? Anything that wasn't covered that you wanted to say? And that is totally fine.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, okay. I don't think, unless Kim has anything to say.
Okay,
I think we're good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Well, the last thing I wanted to leave with you guys is to reiterate, communication is so important. If you are anticipating a delay, communicate with your service team. If you're anticipating hiring someone from outside of your home department, communicate with that person's primary department. Make sure that everyone's on the same page, and we're going to have a smooth Summer Comp 2025. I thank you all for joining us. Again, the recording and slides will be available on Monday in your HR Contact newsletter. So if you need to get added to that, please reach out to me and I can get you added there. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Thank you again so much for participating, for joining, for asking questions, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.